All right, welcome back. So, as you can see, London is not back there. So, I'm all alone. I was going to prank y'all and make y'all think that she was on today, but she's not. She's actually at school right now. Um, but I wanted to get on to talk about Viola Davis' book. I read this book probably about at least maybe 2 months ago, but I forgot to talk about it. And I kept thinking to myself, how did I forget to talk about her book? So I wanted to talk about how it resonated with me. And the way that it resonated with me is that soon as I opened the cover, I knew I was going to like this book. So this book is very raw, it's very real, and I talk about um how I like to watch other people content and read things and hear messages and get downloads from other people's story who don't use like a lot of like jargon or like words that are only familiar in their arena. Like she's a famous actress. So she didn't use any terms that a normal person who isn't an actor or actress would not understand. So that's number one. It's not easy. It wasn't hard to follow or to get into. It was very easy to follow and get into. Second, soon as you open the cover of the book, like her face is like a close up on the book, so you already know that it's gonna be to me like a personal type of story. So the first page, I was like, okay. So she just jumped right into it. Um, she used to be like a fighter with the boys in her neighborhood, and her family grew up not having a lot of money. It reminded me of kind of like Oprah Winfrey's story. And it was shocking, or not shocking actually, that Oprah interviewed her on Netflix. They have like a series or something that you can watch talking. She's interviewing Viola about her book. So that's how I actually got interested in even finding out about the book. So I rented the book from my local library. I have a girlfriend that works there. And I said, hey, do you guys have this book? Luckily, she keeps a lot of African American literature in her circulation. So she already had the book. I was like, bet. So I got the book reserved for me to pick it up, and it took me maybe like a long time to read it because I'm very busy, but every time I would get into it, it would be like a meditation state. Like I felt like I was a part of her journey, and it wasn't like a long drag out read. It was a really flow for flow read. One thing that stood out to me was how she met her husband. She basically just prayed for God to provide her all her little check boxes that she wrote down, and her husband met all those check marks. That's how she knew it was him. um she had a mention about an abortion, so that resonated with me. She also talked about how she just had like a horrible apartment. That resonated with me because my first apartment, I've only had two, but my first apartment was, it wasn't a drag out, like it was just not what I expected it to be once I moved in, because I moved in a real rush. So that resonated with me. It was just so many pivotal things that she talked about. She talked about sexual assault. Um, she talked about anxiety, how she had health problems, still having to fight through those health problems to get to where she uh, could have like consistent roles. And she always talked about how she just had to just basically get in where she fit in within her acting arena, or that playing field or whatever that she had to go through and before she got her like big break or got her Oscar and things like that. So that book was really good. So if you are like somebody who really don't like to read but you want to read something interesting, she's a brown girl. She keeps it real. It does have profanity in it, so it's interesting. It's a little juicy. Um and it just reminded me of when my me and my sister, we were younger, and she used to be in this club called Black Expressions, and I always would read like the dirty books, but she would always read like Terry McMillan, Um, what was his name? I think his name was Eric Dickerson or something like that. It was just a large collection of African American literature. And I just remember her being somebody who always loved to read, and she probably still loves to read, and it just got me into reading. So now I'm more, I like to read more nonfiction than like the fantasy books and stuff like that. But it just took me back to a childhood memory of just her walking us through her childhood to stardom and all of the complications she had in between then. So, Viola Davis, I did shout you out on Instagram, but you probably had a million people shouting you out on Instagram. But if you go across this video, just know your book was the bomb. I really enjoyed it. And I appreciate you for being so raw, so real, and so honest about your your livelihood and being vulnerable enough to write it, because things like that give me courage to get up here to talk to people, to encourage people, to let my light shine a little brighter each day. So kudos to you. And if you're thinking about reading her book, purchasing her book, it would be a great investment. God bless.